the Around the NFL podcast. Can't believe it's not butter.
From the Chris Wessling Podcast Studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. Got a lot of heroes. Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. Oh, and she's back. You think it's Summer of Connie? It ain't Summer of Connie, because Connie is in the building.
That's the cue.
That is a clear cue to the producer for the theme song.
It was
Huh?
Fox, tiny box. Lace up, red buttons,
What?
butter, yellow socks. Colleen, Connie,
Do I love this?
Johnny, back
It's
on the
kinda
show
bad,
like
but
my
kinda
name is
good.
Tsunami, a rich history, Slays Cuddy B, Billy's special
Warming up to
sleeper,
it.
John's still a mystery. 4th and inches, turn down ridges, plus a wedding ring and reject lynches. Fox in the hen house, not just a men's house. Make room, hair roast. This is Connie's penthouse.
Wow.
Whoa.
I don't remember this one.
No.
Home run.
I thought I did, and then I didn't. Like that was good.
Home run?
That's fun.
I liked it. I thought it took us to a lot of different
I
places.
loved it. I mean, I had a bare naked ladies 2 weeks vibe.
Jono Entwistle.
Very nice. Thank you,
Or
Jono.
Yono, maybe it's a soft J.
Yono.
Thank you, Mr. Wentwistle. What was his last name?
Yono went whistle in the house.
That guy rocks.
Clearly a made-up name. He's a criminal.
Entwistle.
And
Wet
Twistle.
whistle.
Yono went whistle. Welcome to Around the NFL. How are you, Colleen?
I'm great. I'm doing really good. I just got back from Atlanta, a little trip over the weekend. My friend just had some twins, so I learned how to hold a child.
And twins.
And twins. So yeah,
Did
it
you
was
say
great.
that, or was that a drop?
I said.
What,
It used to be
what
a
kind
job.
of twins? Like two?
Did you really not know?
No,
that was
my
like
head was turned.
the Gregg bot.
Was it like two boys who were twins? Two girls who were twins?
girl
or
and a
mixed
boy.
scenario?
A girl and a boy, and
Who cares?
yeah,
I did. They're human beings. I care how they arrived.
I went
Like,
over. I was so impressed. Like they didn't have kids before, and all of a sudden they just have like these two newborn babies that are
Boom.
a month old. And Michael, my friend's husband, has two babies like swaddled, strapped onto him somehow. They're very tiny, and he's vacuuming the house at the same time. And so,
Respect.
yeah, it's
Respect.
like you guys are doing great work out there, parents.
I told my wife, and I stuck to the word. I said, "You will never see me
Again,
in one of those like baby strap things walking down a sidewalk. You'll never put that on me." And
Why?
the baby's sitting and you're walking, because I'm gonna hold my child. I don't agree with big baby strap and their whole
He doesn't
vibe.
think it's masculine.
I would have gone in that direction. I thought like it looks a
But
little
that's
bit.
the reason
It is
why.
not masculine.
love
Well,
it.
I
But,
agree with you
yeah,
that it's not, but
but
I
I
thought
don't
want to.
I don't
Sorry,
want to
that's
put
a
people
luxury-
in a corner like that.
That's
but
a luxury you can have in Los Angeles. My first Ellis was in Manhattan. You try walking around 4 miles and stuff, just carrying that baby.
see, I think it's like attractive.
You can't fit a
uphill
stroller.
both ways.
You're
in
not,
the
I'm
snow?
saying you're not putting a stroller on a New York City sidewalk, and if you're going around all day and you got the baby, you're gonna
I did
be
a lot of carrying.
You're gonna be doing a lot
You
of
like
carrying.
it, though, 'cause
You
you
like
like
to
it.
see
Not
that
the
on the
same.
I think that
Not
that's a
the
great
same in LA.
look. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I think you have it all wrong.
It's just where I come down on it, and you could strap on if you want.
Yeah. Personal needs, personal wants.
It's like a fanny pack for a baby. It's
Right.
great.
Well,
Okay.
let's just leave it there.
Fine.
We disagree. It's fine.
All right.
It's okay.
That's what friends do.
This is Around the AFC in 48 minutes exactly, and it's a perfect time for it. We're going to do the NFC later in the week with Mr. Patrick Claybon, and we are doing this, Greggy, because it feels right. We are setting the table for what's going to be a whirlwind of about 6 weeks of football transactions, so let's see where everybody's at.
Especially the next 2 weeks. I want to get this thing out there before anything happens. But starting this weekend, I noticed you were on the free agency frenzy watch, Colleen,
Yes.
hosting on Sunday. Starting around then, it's just going to be popping for about 10 straight days, cuts, trades, all the rest.
I feel like it is popping now.
It's kinda popping.
I kind of
It's
look
popping.
at
It's
I understand
percolating.
Yeah.
the deadline is a nice branding opportunity for
is.
various people, but it's like
It's happening.
Let's be real. I mean, we were sitting home yesterday watching bullets fly left and right on our laptops and on NFL Network.
Yes, that's true. That is true. So why don't we, without further ado, dig in to everything? Because, again, The rules
Yeah, how does this work
are
again?
finite. There's no wiggle room here. 3 minutes per team, 16 teams, 16 times 3, 48 minutes. We don't go over. If you go over, our producer, and we've all signed waivers years ago, is allowed to trank us right in the old jugular. It sounds like this. Colleen?
Ooh,
Whoa.
Whoa, what was that? That's
That
not
feels
our
like a
trank.
taser.
Super trank.
Whoops.
You just killed Colleen. Now we don't have a fourth.
First
Get
the,
Christy in here.
First the dog bite.
Wait. Gravedigger, you do have the trank, right?
Of course. It's right.
are all of
laser
these
fire
shots
in
fired
there?
at me right now?
There it is.
There we go.
Got a little
That's it.
nervous there. Without the trank, it's a problem keeping people in line. So we're going to go through all 4 divisions in the AFC today, NFC after that. So let us get going. Do we have any type of, I don't know, like a DJ's air horn, something to get us rolling here?
There should be like an opening ceremony of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we should
Yes.
work on for
That'd
next
be-
year.
That's a good idea.
All right, ready?
Next time.
Yep. I like it. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills, and I will get us going here because, this is a huge year for the AFC East champions. They have become a mainstay, obviously, in the AFC playoffs, but they can't get over the hump. They can't even get to the Super Bowl. So what do they have to do? Couple of things, and it seems like it's offense-related as we look ahead to free agency in the draft. The offensive line was a little bit of a problem this season. I could see them going down that road. But I think it is skill players that you're going to see this team look different. Wide receiver is a little weird and funky in free agency in the draft, but making a move there. This is a tight end heavy draft. I see something there. I love so much, boys and girls, Derrick Henry to the Bills. I see them making big moves to help Josh Allen, just like everyone else seems to think. Do you agree?
I would adore that. We mentioned the Bills, the Eagles, just for fun, as Derrick Henry landing spots a couple shows ago. I think if you go after Derrick Henry, you've got to say, we're a team with essentially a 1-year, 2-year Super Bowl window, and he's the kind of guy that deep in the season, if he's healthy, can literally just destroy our enemy. And Derrick Henry added to Josh Allen and friends, that's suddenly
Who's going to want to tackle that team in December?
You take
in
that
January?
week, you take that Sunday off. You suddenly have a little issue.
I think a problem for the Titans when it comes to trading Henry is just there's so many good running backs available in this market. But I do think they'd want to add a little juice there. Devin Singletary is a free agent. I think they liked what James Cook gave him, but maybe he's going to be more of a third down guy. They have some big decisions, though. Jordan Poyer, kind of been a rock for them in this Sean McDermott defense. And Tremaine Edmonds, one of the first picks under Sean McDermott when they arrived here, both free agents. Edmonds coming off a career year. I think they got to be careful about overspending to just keep this same group together. It'd be interesting. McDermott maybe taking over that defense after Leslie Frazier's gone. Ooh, we're already down to 1.
That's okay. All right, here I got some thoughts real quick.
Go
the
ahead.
offensive line.
You got a whole minute.
I think for me that's my biggest concern because we saw the problems from that in the loss to Cincinnati, and when you look at even the way that PFF ranks them, their final run blocking grade was 5th worst. So if they're going to get Derrick Henry, they better have a good offensive line in place too, and then they really do need a legit number 2 wide receiver because Gabe Davis, he was expected to take that next step, but I'm not really sure he did. And when you have, Isaiah McKenzie, he's a good role player, but they need someone opposite Stephon Diggs to really make this offense sing.
All right, hear me out.
Okay.
You get Nuke Hopkins. You get Derrick Henry. You
Okay.
draft an offensive lineman.
What
and
is this
you
fantasy
go
football?
win the Super Bowl. Have a huge offseason.
I say get Hopkins
that
and
sounds
get a
awesome.
cheap running back. There's a lot available.
Get to the AFC title game at least.
Ooh.
That's not going to be good enough.
I know, but it feels like their DNA. We both just got taken out.
Who got it, by the way? Or is that a magic bullet?
That was both Mark and Dan
Right.
for talking after the timer ended.
All right, up next, Colleen Wolfe, the
Okay.
Miami Dolphins.
Okay, Mike McDaniel, his first season was pretty promising, you guys. He made some fashion statements.
It's great having Colleen here.
He made the playoffs.
Yep.
And I think that like he made an excellent first impression, especially the first half of the season. They were also a little uneven at times, and I think this first season for McDaniel was not unlike Nick Sirianni's first season with the Eagles, and the fact that they were able to get to the playoffs and it was unexpected. They lost in terrible fashion to the Bucs, but it kind of reminds me of that. And I think Tua, he showed some growth and development before the concussions. But, I mean, when you look at their scoring, they scored the 11th most points per game. Bop, 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 bop. I mean, the receivers, they produced. You have 2 receivers there with over 1,000 yards. Their defense was the weakness. And Vic Fangio is going to try and change that, make it into a strength. The secondary really dropped off. It's the biggest area of weakness for them. Byron Jones was hurt all season. He'll get cut if he hasn't gotten cut already. He got cut? I don't know. He will. And then Xavier Howard, he struggled in coverage too. So that's a major situation that they need to figure out. But they have no first-round pick.
They're in a tough spot. Not a lot of cap space. No first-round pick. Like heightened expectations after that year. Very difficult division. And you mentioned like major holes, like offensive line, secondary. Fangio will help that, I think, with coaching. But they profile as a team that would want to be very aggressive this offseason, and yet they don't seem to have as many like resources to do it in terms of cap space as you would hope.
I mean, I love the idea of a team being in the second year of a Mike McDaniel offense, except so much went well through the year last year. I mean, it all came down to like complete chaos at the quarterback position in terms of durability, and I think that, you know, I know Mike McDaniel keeps coming out and supporting Tua over and over. I just wonder if they're a sneaky little team, we talked about it last step, that might be tempted to chase someone like Lamar Jackson because their owner keeps wanting to chase these guys left and right.
Yeah.
Or bring back Tom Brady, but he says he's not coming back.
Yeah. Rich Eisen had said that he had heard.
There was like a rumor going around
out
that
there
Tom Brady
connecting
tried to swat down. Yeah.
Brady with the Dolphins. So
Miami.
I can't imagine that happens. That would be crazy. But, you know, he's already come out of retirement once. Yeah, I think that the Tua thing is, it does feel like there might be something missing here. As much as they do love him, do they really want to go into a deeper relationship with him? And if Lamar's really there, I know Darlington reported that they weren't in on Lamar, but
you got to put that out there.
Lamar did play well, though, and I think that they played the Bills really close all season long.
Tua.
Tua.
You comped him to Sirianni and the Eagles, though. Would Tua make a Hurts-like leap? He already made a leap last year. I don't know what his, you know.
Not like that.
I was right in, came in right under the.
Is it because of the tank situation? We're not going to trank her when it's unless it's egregious.
Graver already killed me at the top of the show.
Trigger figure with Mark and Dan.
It's like the play clock situation where it's like, well, if it's we look at the clock first.
Right. There's like the
tenth
of a second after 0-0, 0.9.
Right. It was like the second over, but it's fine. Marc Sessler, the New England Patriots.
All right. I have a past with Bill Belichick. He's part of my youth. I really have always thought highly of him. But I keep wondering.
The Belichick letters.
Yeah, I keep wondering.
NFL.com, Marc Sessler.
That's right.
Still
NFL,
checking that mailbox for the return.
If you can still find it on our site, we'll see. I just keep wondering if, last year, Belichick was sort of doing a high-level punking of society, and will completely get Mac Jones back on track under his guy pal Bill O'Brien come September. Load up on free agents. They have a major amount of cap space this year, 7th most in the league right now. 6 draft picks in the first 4 rounds. Maybe they go back to playoffs. Everything's fine all over again. But then I also I do ponder how last season, I thought it was one of the rare shining examples of the Pats totally mismanaging last offseason and sabotaging their quarterback under a defensive coach. And somehow it's like Bill Belichick didn't see any of that coming. And it leads me to ask a sacrilegious question. As the league is growing so quickly, is there any concern here in March 2023
send a trank into your neck
that Bill Belichick, in a hyper-evolutionary NFL, is he showing signs of being left behind just a little bit?
Whoa.
Or a lot?
I don't know if he's being left behind, but I definitely know, I wrote this down after you said it, I know that last season wasn't a high-level punking of society.
Right.
I think Bill
But we didn't talk about it that way, it's going to be fun. Everyone's all getting all worked up, and then it was a disaster.
I said it often on the show. It's Bill, when has Bill ever made kind of a fool of himself and not been ready to develop a young quarterback and run the team the right way. Well, then we saw it, like the idea of the Joe Judge Patricia thing. We don't need to talk about that again, but we know it went poorly, and it is kind of crazy to think, Greggy, I know you are Belichick supporter number one, that he did kind of – these are uber valuable rookie contract years, and you had a very promising first-year player in Jones. You kind of just booted his second-year development, and now you're in a kind of a weird in-between stage.
Yeah, because they need so much help. So Nelson Aguilar is a free agent. That's fine. That's good. Jacoby Myers is a free agent. That's bad. I hope they
Bring him back.
But, yes, they have cap space. They also have so many needs. Like, pick a tackle. I don't know if they're going to keep Trent Brown or not. I wouldn't shock me if they cut him. Then you would need 2 tackles. They need help in their secondary. Jonathan Jones is a free agent. We don't know if Devin McCourty is coming back. There's just like not a spot on this team that I feel totally comfortable with. Some good young pieces on defense in general, but Jonnu Smith's still on this team. Hunter Henry's kind of overpaid. Like,
it's so weird.
They need to make a lot of moves.
Like
weird team.
It feels like a team that is like old and trying to be young. Like just from the roster, the coaching staff, it's like, hello, fellow kids. That is the team.
Little Buscemi with the skateboard.
Yes.
They still win 8 or 9 games every year, but
what? Greg, did you watch the game on Monday? New York Jets.
New York Jets. Okay, we spent a lot of time talking Rodgers. We will talk Rodgers some more. So let's talk about the non-Rodgers aspects to this team. What do they do if they get Rodgers? Are you going to have to clear a lot of cap space? That could be Carl Lawson. Was a big-time pickup. Could be Jordan Whitehead. I guess my issue with all the talk about Rodgers is like, well, you put him with the best defense in the league and these young pieces and like away you go. But they won't be the best defense in the league next year. That's just like not how it works. I think you have to expect the defense to take a step back because that's usually what happens, and you have a decent amount of free agents there, and you need a guy like Rodgers to juice up the offense a lot to make up for what's going to happen to the defense. It's 2022. Defenses only matter so much. I think even the Jets saw that in some big spots, that like the defense is only going to take them so far. You got to juice up that offense with Rodgers.
Yeah, and Nathaniel Hackett. That's going to be the key.
Well, he's getting the job
I think he
done.
can do this part of it. He's done this part of it before. You're right.
Enter
There's
Sandman,
some questions
baby.
hanging out there.
I know.
Yeah.
Jermaine Johnson is their first-round pick, one of their first-round picks from last year. The idea is that he could slide in and take Carl Lawson's spot. That's sensible, but then you're banking on his development. For the most part, though, the defense is coming back.
They have some depth pieces. The defensive line, they'll be looking kind of at the lower margins of free agency.
They got to get things right with Quinnen Williams to get him paid. I could see them adding a safety, and there are some nice options in free agency. I think that's a target that they'll look at. But for me, it is. If you do land Rodgers, you got to invest in the offensive line. You got to hope Breece Hall comes back and looks like Breece Hall. And I think you're ready to roll. I think they're a very dangerous, good team as long as Rodgers, if he is their quarterback, doesn't get old and is the guy he was last year.
Yeah, because he's scouting them too, and he's got to like what he sees. You're right, like the idea that they'd be top 5. Sure, but they're not going to suddenly be 27th.
But maybe. I mean, they could be 11th too, and that would be shocking.
But then there's no reason to sign anywhere because like,
the
it
idea
sounds
is
like total
that the
chaos theory.
offense
But
is going to go from 25 to hopefully top 10.
All I mean is like you can't count on that totally. And I'm a little worried about their offensive line. It's like a boom or bust offensive line.
I can't believe they had 6 tackles that went on IR, and they have so many
survived.
guys that are free agents too coming up. Tackles.
The Mekhi Becton thing is a big piece here where he fits in at this point. And I do think they need to add another wide receiver. Maybe, I don't know, I wonder if Elijah Moore gets traded just because it's been a bit funky, that road.
I love him with Rodgers, though. You could lose Corey Davis. He might get cut.
We did come a year away from Rodgers, if this all shakes out, working with both LaFleur brothers. But they had to get him out of there because probably without Nathaniel Hackett, it doesn't go down anyway. So I understand what you're doing there.
Their starting center is a free agent. There's just like Rodgers can't do it all.
Right.
You still have to have a good offseason. And your boy did last year.
And Hackett
2
could
rookies
go
of the year.
badly, but he wasn't an embarrassment until... I can't say it. Oh, fuck it. until he got promoted beyond what he was able to do. Now he's back down a spot.
And got saddled with a quarterback that decided to die on us. So,
all right. Let's take a break and then move on to the AFC North. All right, we're back. Let's keep rolling. Give me that air horn again. Let's get back into it. Oh. Oh. The Baltimore Ravens of the AFC North. So, obviously the big story is Lamar. Did the Ravens say goodbye to Lamar when they hit him with that non-exclusive franchise tag? If Lamar doesn't find a suitor that meets his contract demands, would he be open to going back to Baltimore on the tag? Or open to hammering out a deal that isn't in line with his original off-speculated goal of a fully guaranteed deal? Mm-hmm. Is the compromise here that he becomes the new Kirk Cousins, where he does get his guaranteed money, just not the amount that he was hoping for, and it goes over the next couple of years? Then he hits unrestricted free agency at age 28, which would be grand. He would probably do very well in that spot. Or is all this not worth talking about because there's so much bad blood now between the two sides that he is going to be property of a different team come September?
I think there's a chance he
would
be
back. Is there a path home?
I think so. If the right market doesn't happen for him, I believe the Ravens when they say they still want to keep him. They just want to do it in their terms.
I think in a way, if you're Lamar and his mom's helping him out with all this and you don't have an agent, the Ravens are, if anything, saying, go ahead and find your deal and we'll see if we want to match. You're giving him the freedom to go do it. I think that's showing enough respect for him if he wasn't happy with how slowly the process has gone with the Ravens. But they've been doing this for so long.
It's a little tricky because you got to put a team together, though.
Right.
You would like to know if Lamar is the guy or not. By the way, you would need a quarterback if Lamar is not your quarterback.
Well, exactly. That's my more thing. Is if this doesn't shake out, they are suddenly maybe left out in the cold in a massive way at the most important
position. Why you got to trade him for Mac Jones in a first.
Wow. Everything revolves around how this Lamar Jackson situation shakes out. Their entire future, short-term and long-term, depends on this right now, and that feels so risky. But I guess they're just banking on the fact that Lamar Jackson won't have the market that Lamar Jackson thinks he's going to have. And I guess if teams don't want to give up 2 first-round picks, they could eventually do some type of sign and trade situation. But I mean, this is a team that also has a lot of other questions, at wide receiver.
Yes, they should be in the Hopkins business.
Yeah.
Well, wait a second. No, well, only if Lamar Jackson or someone suitable to them being a contender is behind center. I guess that's why it's all so nebulous right now with them. For that very reason, they're kind of hung up in purgatory here. And is it possible that if they are willing and open to moving on, do they just take a year where they're a down team for a year and they reload and they get a good draft pick next year and they're back at it in 24? I think that's an outcome here too, and I don't think Ravens fans want to hear that, but it might be long-term not the dumbest play.
They're too good, though, for that. It doesn't work because they're I like their roster. They don't have a ton of huge needs, not a ton of huge free agents.
The Ravens are telling us they're willing to do that by everything that's happened.
Colleen Wolfe on the Bengals.
That's how you time that, by the way.
Beautiful.
Here we go. As soon as you started talking about the Ravens, I realized that I wrote about the Ravens instead of the Bengals. But guys, you know what? I can freestyle, so let's talk about it here. This team.
This is going to go.
2:48 left to go.
Incredibly.
Right,
you have to fill. We're
doing some work here. Honestly, my biggest problem with this team, honestly, let me tell you the truth here,
Opens with
guys.
an honestly, comma.
The offensive line is still a problem. It was a problem last year, and it remained a problem throughout the season. And because of the injuries late in the season, that's exactly how we saw this team fall apart. Jonah Williams, he played at left tackle all season long, and Williams did a great job. But, I mean, this has been a problem for them. So they absolutely need to get that figured out. Defensive backs also, they could use some work because Jesse Bates.
Yeah, he looks like he's going.
He's gone. Also, tight end. I mean, Hayden Hurst might leave in free agency. And then your number 2 blocking tight ends, Drew Sample and Mitchell Wilcox, they're also free agents. So there's a little hole in the roster, too. when you look at this team, they have a lot of talent on the roster. So there's only a few things that they really need to get done, and offensive line is at the very top of the list.
Is Lyle Collins even back? He seems like a guy
doesn't
that could
sound
be
like it.
cut
I think
loose as well.
he's going to get cut. I think Mixon is going to get cut. I think they'd like to bring Von Bell back, who's also a free agent. That would be losing 2 safeties. Hurst, I could see coming back. I could see them drafting a running back. That's sort of their thing. They just like draft one every 5 years. I do listen to the Athletics Bengals podcast. Paul Denner, former guest of our show.
Nice.
And they really think that the Bengals will not be
father.
spending in free agency this offseason. They're saving all that money for Joe Burrow.
Well, I think they're one of these teams where you have Jamar Chase down the road, and so you can't hit a bunch of positions. They did that last year and addressed the offensive
couple
line.
years,
It
and
was
they've done a good
injuries.
job.
It was injuries that sideswiped them, though. It wasn't their
Right.
planning. I think they're a well-constructed team at this point, but the Bengals, to me, among the Chiefs, Bills, these high-flying AFC teams, they're losing a lot of faces.
They need tackle help. I mean, Williams was okay, but now he's okay coming off an injury, and you don't have a right
Do you
tackle.
want to hear something that's a little less than okay? Williams tied for the most sacks surrendered by any tackle, 12 in the regular season, and had a 49.9 run blocking grade per PFF.
Wow.
That's a lot. And then Bell, Bates, and Eli Apple, who I know is their 4th cornerback, but all those guys had major snaps. So I think Duke Tobin's done a great job in general and has earned the benefit of the doubt. But they have a big offseason to try to stay up at the top.
Colleen, I feel like you really did.
Did a great job
Find a
there.
way.
Just ask a question
Bell,
next
Bates, and
time.
Apple
You don't have to
combined
talk.
for
Just
3
ask
of the
a
4
question.
most snaps played on defense. I got you. Wow. We did it, guys. We did it.
Can she celebrate, or is that a trank?
Oh,
No, you can celebrate.
Oh, okay.
You're not talking about the team anymore.
I'm
so
just
you're good to
checking
go.
for the rules. Mark, the Cleveland Browns.
All right. You're the Browns. You're roughly $13 million in the red, okay? You don't have a first-round pick until 2025. You're gonna have to restructure Deshaun and a bunch of others because there are a lot of real needs here. I look around this division, and the Browns, I don't think thought they'd be here this offseason in this situation.
You are a factory of sadness!
Definitely need defensive line. No edge rusher across from Myles Garrett. They need linebackers, multiple linebackers. You probably need a wide receiver, if not 2. Kareem Hunt's out the door. There's just a lot for Andrew Berry, who is a great general manager, to handle here. But I think all of that doesn't really center around the nucleus as much as just that, okay, we get it. Deshaun Watson was rusty, etc., in quotes. But he also just didn't seem to fit Kevin Stefanski's offense really well. It went off a cliff in multiple ways. And I guess the biggest question is because nothing else they've done since last offseason matters, and you're not in this situation, it doesn't matter if you don't trust that Kevin Stefanski, the same way you say Sean Payton is going to fix Russell Wilson. Well, that's probably nonsense, but you can make an argument for it. But do you trust Kevin Stefanski to suddenly tailor an offense around a better version of Deshaun Watson immediately? Because all of this was them saying, among every team in this division, we're the must-win now team. And I look around the other 3 teams in this division. I'm not sure they're not in 4th in that. I'm not trying to be a Browns hater. All these Browns fans thinking that. I'm not saying that at all. It's just that team building wise, they have a lot of needs and they don't have a lot of answers right now.
One thing they can do is restructure, you mentioned, with Watson and a lot of their other players. And that's something where I think it gets lost, where that's where an owner like Jimmy Haslam, who has all the money, you could just restructure forever. The Saints do it every year, and everyone gets so mad, it's eventually going to cost them. It really hasn't. You just keep doing it. They're spending more cash, so they're trying to win. So I think they'll still be aggressive. I'm with you. They have a lot of needs. Defensive line, they certainly need another weapon in terms of a receiver for Watson.
I mean, before Watson played, the offense looked pretty good.
It was 5th DVOA.
Right. And you have Amari Cooper having this career renaissance almost there. I mean, he definitely stepped up. And then you have Nick Chubb, who is so talented. And then all of a sudden, everything came to a screeching halt when Deshaun Watson's got in there. So,
I don't think they're that far away. If Watson played well, it's a big if, then I think they're right there with the rest of the division.
Browns fans
think
know
it's that
this.
crazy.
This isn't breaking any news. If Watson
It's a
is
big
no
if.
longer an impact player, if he stinks or is even closer to average, they're shot. They have so much tied up in him, and I know you could restructure, but they tied the organization to him. He's got to play at a high level, or else.
Bingo.
Good line. He's got some things going for him. Good coach.
What a gamble.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, Gregg Rosenthal.
I didn't know what to say about the Steelers. They're just like
I
coming
can
back
use that
every
line?
year.
You could have started with honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
Say that you plan to talk about the Browns.
We
That way
haven't
just, like,
we haven't
tell you
talked
the
about this.
truth.
When was the last time we talked about the Steelers? They used to be one of our Tiffany franchises, as Dan likes to say.
Still are a Tiffany franchise.
Kind of like the Patriots, but they're just sitting there. They're lying in the weeds. They have a young offense. They will not have much turnover on their roster. Not many key free agents, which is good news. I think they need to juice up that defense again. It's not a difference-making defense. Cameron Sutton and Terrell Edmonds, who are both starters, are free agents. I think Sutton might get a nice deal in free agency. But it's the line that bothers me. They've never figured it out. It's the same stuff every year with the Steelers. It's the secondary and it's the offensive line. And they seem to like this offensive line, but I just don't get it. I just don't expect them to be aggressive in free agency.
You know what, though? I would say that I think last year, if you were a Steelers fan, for the first time in a while, you were thinking, this might be a rough one, and then we get out of it. Like, instead, you found out the power of Mike Tomlin, and like they found a quarterback over the course of an up and down season. George Pickens looks fantastic at wide receiver. Najee Harris played some of his best ball, and like the line started as a disaster, but it got a little bit better as the year went along, and the whole offense in general kind of grew together. All these guys are on rookie deals, so it's like I kind of get you don't know what to say because like we just have to see another year of it and see where they are after. They're on a billion burning like voids here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and look at the defense before or with and without TJ Watt, so you hopefully have him for a full season. I would love it. This is not what they do. This is not a Pittsburgh move, but as much as they might like Pickett or the idea of him long term, imagine Lamar Jackson.
That would be crazy.
You want to talk
There's
about
no way.
sticking it to a rival and putting together, it's not a poison pill contract, but something really unpalatable for Baltimore. And then all of a sudden you have him playing with Mike Tomlin and that defense.
I do love that.
That's a wild fantasy.
Whoa.
But Kenny Pickett, like, he knows the building. He knew where all, like, the lavatories
He knew
were.
where the
like,
lavatories
That
were.
field,
library.
he's just so.
He knew-
he knows the field.
Yeah.
He
he
knew
knows
like
the grass.
which
help
lavatory
the
has
downtick.
the extra, the smaller, the shorter urinals.
Sure,
which
necessary.
ones had the higher ones.
Do you know who
Stalls.
helped change the rules into like indirectly because of the poison pill contract? I miss poison
Mike
pills.
Tannenbaum, Curtis Martin.
There was a few throughout the years, but I think the last one, Hutchinson was another one,
Yep.
was our colleague Nate Burleson, one of my close friends.
Really?
One of our podcast co-hosts, Nate Burleson.
Some of those things
it
are
was
true.
his contract going to, I think, from Minnesota to Seattle. That was so.
Wait, Nate Burleson is a podcast co-host?
Well, I mean, he's
I think
a
he's
podcaster,
just a host.
fellow
He's got-
I don't think he's a
Colleague?
co-host.
Interviewed Rihanna.
We just had to burn out the time on Gregg's bit here. Not on purpose, but you want to call timeout? You get to finish your bit. I'm calling timeout.
So
I
what-
didn't know timeouts were available
this is,
again.
These
You guys,
rules?
every year, you're like,
You're
wait,
bringing
you can
it
call
back.
timeout. Oh, only Dan calls timeouts. Anybody could call a timeout, and I'm calling one.
Do you
and
have
then
an unlimited
giving
number
time
of timeouts?
back to Gregg to
Oh,
finish
wow,
his comment.
you're giving it to me.
Yes.
I believe it was the Vikings and the Seahawks, and the poison pill thing was so crazy. I forget what the rules were. It was like if you're in the Northwest, then you get like a $7 million bonus. I don't know. They added some crazy thing into his contract, and the NFL at that point was like, all right, we need to
The
stop.
Hutchinson was there can't be another offensive lineman that's being paid more
Right.
than his salary, and that competing team had somebody already on the roster. Poison pill, they wiped those things out. Wiped them out.
Interesting. Okay, so just to be clear with the timeout
Yes.
thing.
We get 3.
We each get 3.
No,
There's 3 total.
we're a team.
So one person
We're
can
all
call.
a team, or we are a
Yes.
team and they're a
We're-
team.
we-
We
We're
have
a
3. We
team.
have 2 remaining timeouts.
As the Around the NFL
Okay.
podcast, we're trying to create the best show, and the timeouts help
Got it.
do that. But Dan tends to be like Kyle Shanahan, and like if the clock's running down, it's like first quarter, doesn't like to save him at all. Just he likes using those
It's
timeouts.
something like maybe a head coach or a host has to take control and call timeout and help
Co-host.
the others.
That's what leaders do.
Yeah, I
all-
thought you
we're
did
all
you did a
co-hosts.
fine job with that timeout. I
the
would
others.
kill you for that.
I
Are
thought
your
you were
bylines
setting
still
me up.
co-host?
I thought you were setting me up to get tranked.
No, not at all.
I assume our bylines have not changed. I have no idea who actually did that. It must have been Ali. That
You know
little
what?
Scamp.
The NFL.com profiles, which Henry went into mine, Henry Hodgson, about 5 or 6 years ago and rewrote mine.
No.
And the last line says, Hanzus hosts, oh, interesting, the award-winning Around the NFL podcast with an aplomb reminiscent of a young Chris Berman. And that has sat on NFL.com for the better part of a decade.
That is absurd.
So is our status as award-winning. It's been since
Hey, can't take it away.
the best new podcast in 2014 or something.
All right, time in. Let's move to the AFC South. Oh, what a division. My goodness. All right, so it is the Colts. I'll start here. It's an absolute certainty the Colts will come out of free agency, draft, trades, blah, 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 with the QB of the future in their minds. Will it be trade, free agency, draft? Probably draft. They have the number 4 pick, and you could see management, especially at this point where the management is, ownership being hyper-aggressive, maybe moving up out of that number 4 spot to go get somebody they really want. But I'll do it again. I know I don't want to keep ringing the same bell here, but do they make sense as a Lamar suitor, the Colts? Because Irsay, quite frankly, has become a real unpredictable character, the owner of the Colts, and because of the frustrations in their post-Luck era, which is about 4 or 5 years now, would they make a play? Because if they could make something work, the AFC South is – I mean, the Jaguars are a promising team on the rise, but otherwise you can really make noise in that division with a big-time quarterback. So the draft is probably the most likely place they're going to get that QB of the future, but are they a team to keep an eye on for Lamar?
I think like Chris Ballard obviously cannot pick more than one more quarterback ever at this point. And you can't – no one would argue going for Lamar Jackson from a talent level. I think it seems a little aggressive for who they are, but they do also have a chance if they really wanted to. They're flush with draft picks over the next couple of years, so not missing ones. Ryan Poles of the Bears has said that there is a team out there, a couple teams that have basically already offered like multiple number ones to get up, and that's not everyone you'd expect. But the Colts could do that without too many problems and get the number 1 guy they want. I'd like to think they'd want to build around someone young, but I'd pitch the Lamar Jackson thing on that in our Lamar episode because it kind of, if you're Shane Steichen, you just did all this with Jalen Hurts. They're not exactly the same player, but why saddle him with anything other than someone he can maximize?
You don't think they're too wounded from taking
but they
veteran
can't,
quarterbacks?
You can't be, though. Well,
but
Lamar is different than Carson Wentz, though, or Matt Ryan.
I get it, but they
true.
just seem so married to this idea.
Right.
Jim Irsay kind of giving it away in the press conference,
that
being
was my
like,
favorite.
like there's a couple good
That Alabama kid.
Yeah, like he's looking good. I think they all just like this idea. I also think that it's like good for job security. We're going to start over.
Wait, how does Jim Irsay talk again?
That Alabama kid.
That's pretty good.
Maybe keep him off the mic for a few minutes.
Actually, they have many quarterbacks that have played a lot of football on this roster still. Matt Ryan is on this roster still.
That's an
Foles.
absurdity.
Let's go to the
Nick
booth.
Foles, former Eagle great.
My guy.
You know who's gone up a
Time
lot
to go somewhere.
in the Q rating, I feel like, since the end of the season? I guess it's obvious, but, man, people love Steichen. Everyone makes it out to be that Steichen's the genius all along. Some Frank Reich leaving.
Maybe he was the one behind the butt putt.
You think so?
Colts also
Ultimately.
need a lot of players on their defensive line.
Ngakwe is a free agent. Okereke, their linebackers, a free agent.
Taquan
Still have Gus
Lewis,
Bradley,
right, too?
by the way.
Is the offensive line bad now? What's up with that?
We'll see.
You did.
I'm already shot.
I mean, was
that a bad year
for him?
Yes.
Or
He's done.
is that a bad line? And,
And Quentin Nelson fell off a cliff. What's going on here? So
that's what I mean.
yeah, I think
Him, right?
Yeah, that one hit
Also,
Mark.
it's nice to see Cooter back in the big spot.
Cooter!
Offensive line.
Love to see
offensive
Cooter back.
coordinator.
Thank you.
Jim Cooter.
Why are
I
we
mean,
spending so much time talking about this team? Come on, of all
All
the
right,
teams.
let's
Is
talk
this
about
like,
the only team that matters in the South.
That's what I'm talking about.
The Jaguars, Colleen.
What a
Got his ass.
for
Trank
the
yourself,
Jags.
baby.
I thought he was gonna say
Trank
Titans.
yourself,
He
baby.
didn't say Titans.
Right in the
He
jugular.
said Jaguars.
Turn that trank on your own self.
So anyway,
I'm pissed off, Angelo.
yes, the Jags. What a comeback for them. This time last year they were coming off an ugly, messy public breakup with Urban Meyer, and now they're just in this like beautiful relationship with Doug Peterson. Won the division, watched a different Trevor Lawrence emerge, so they have a legit quarterback on a rookie deal right now. came back from down 27 points against the Chargers to play in the divisional round and lose by a touchdown to Kansas City. But this is the comeback that was hoped for. This was, Dan, we talked about it on the Power Rankings podcast at the beginning of the season.
Good plug.
Which teams, which will be back next year, I'm sure.
Bang.
Which team will turn it around? So, listen, they have Calvin Ridley now on the team. He's back. He's a Jag. The pass defense definitely needs some work. Tyson Campbell had a good year. Shaq Griffin, they just released him. Cap casualty there, so they have to do some work on the back end. They tagged Evan Ingram. Zay Jones also produced last year. Those were their 2 free agent additions, so I think they're in really good shape.
Yeah, I mean, also everyone, including Trevor Lawrence, hinted at the fact that his rookie year obviously just didn't even exist. Last year was his rookie year,
Right.
and so it's year 2 for everyone in a way, and it's like I just think that there is really no ceiling on the Jaguars. I think the one thing that can get escape them a little bit is just expectations, where it's like now they're just going to roll into the playoffs. It's like that doesn't always work, and it doesn't always work with Doug Peterson too necessarily. So we'll see. I'm a little,
But sometimes it does.
I just don't want to ticket them
job.
for the AFC title game.
I mean,
yet.
second year of Doug Peterson for Philadelphia worked out pretty well.
It did.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
being a little
not
tease
for
there.
my-
No one was
Patriots.
pissed off,
No.
Angelo.
You're a little tease there, Marky. You said
They-
there's no roof.
going on with Gregg?
I don't know. We're just trying to spice it up.
Still 8 teams to go here.
I'm a showman. They
And he moved his arms like a marching robot
Definitely
somehow.
not a showman move.
I'm a showman.
I'm a showman.
This is what you do when you're a showman.
I am a human.
Action figure.
I thought it was interesting. Trent Baalke basically said to the media that like last year was their year. Like they went in last year. This year they're very much just going to bring back the same team. They don't have a lot of cap flexibility. It's kind of like the Patriots went crazy in 2020 and then they totally stopped spending or 2021 and stopped spending in 22. So it's basically the whole team is coming back. They have a couple of free agents, Juwan Taylor, Arden Key. Other than that, they're basically trying to bring back the same team, continuity and
Usually
youth,
I would
which
be
is-
against that. Teams, you shouldn't rest on your laurels and all that, but I don't mind seeing this nucleus kind of coalesce.
Yeah, and they're young. They're young.
For another year.
Christian Kirk delivered.
The Tennessee Titans. Gregg
Graver and I
Rosenthal.
are just bonding at this point.
Yeah,
Great
the
show for us.
Titans, the team we didn't bring up when Graver thought it was going to happen.
Right in your face, the trick in the face.
So I actually think they're one of the most fascinating teams this offseason because we're going to find out in the next 10 days, are they going to blow it up or not? This roster is a borderline disaster. I mean, their offensive line has been bad. It looks like it's getting worse. We think Derrick Henry might be available. You might as well just go the whole way and make Ryan Tannehill available. And then you're kind of in the, number 1 overall pick for Caleb Williams sweepstakes. They could be a team, the Titans, that could go for a rookie quarterback this year too, like move up in the draft. They're at number 11, but I just don't see a clear path out. And I would only say this about 3 or 4 teams in the NFL, and it's crazy that the Titans are one of them, and they always prove us wrong. Maybe they'll prove us wrong, but it feels like
Will they?
they're going to be
Justin
like
Graver?
a 6-win type of team.
Yeah, I agree with Gregg, actually. And here's the sound, so I don't make a big deal out of it. We're on a limited clock here. I don't want to... Okay, sorry.
But just the fact that you did all that.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
and now
So-
we're
so-
talking
So
about
dismissed.
it too.
Get to
Dismissed
the
all 4 of
point.
us.
I think the best course of action is for the Titans to go into rebuild mode and get a high pick in 2024. I don't think that's what they will do. There are reports that the Titans prefer C.J. Stroud of all the quarterback options in this class. He could be available down in like the 7, 8, 9 range if they wanted to trade up. I don't know if Vegas is going to trade down, but could look to trade up at 3 with the Cardinals, at 5 with who's at 5? The Lions, 6 is the Seahawks, or maybe that's opposite. 5 is Seahawks, 6 the Lions. All those teams kind of have quarterbacks. I mean, I don't know if the Lions do, but
You can't just like one quarterback, though, if you make that trade, unless you wait till draft.
right,
Because C.J. Stroud might go number 1.
totally.
What percent chance you put on Tannehill being on the team?
70. I think it's most likely
70.
they do that. But if they move Tannehill, that is a clear indication of where they think the team is, which is rebuilding,
Right.
obviously.
Their offensive line there's no worse line last year in the league, you could argue.
Yeah, and it's not getting better right now. Taylor Lewan gone, Nate Davis likely hitting free agency.
David Long Jr. is in my top 20 now after all the tags in terms of free
Dennis
agents.
Daly?
Dennis Daly was not very good.
That's a
He
good one,
allowed
yeah.
the most tied for allowed the most sacks in the NFL last year.
I like the
Raven
idea
Clark?
of Tannehill going to the Falcons. I still like it.
And I've been through this, Justin, but like maybe this is a take your medicine year. Maybe you do strip the whole thing down to the studs.
I think it's worth it for the long-term outlook. Like, what are you going to do if you go win 7 games and pick in the teens again? Like, you're not going to build for the future.
You made that run with that group, and now
they peaked.
Do you
It's
like
over.
Ran Carthon as the guy to do
so
it?
far? Yeah, why not?
He's doing
Let's see
he's
what he
playing
does.
bad cop right now.
Yeah.
all right, we finish up with the Houston Texans. Marc Sessler.
And we engineered it that way because the respect for the Texans within this building, in this corporation, knows no end. They have been a consistent punching line for years. We know that. It's been a mini
Punching
Vietnam
line.
on the PR front for various reasons. But I want you to take a look at the Texans now. D'Amico Ryans feels like a great hire to me. I mean, the players that have been around him are just like, I just think it's just going to work.
Everyone's excited.
You're going to work.
Everybody likes it.
You have the third most cap space league-wide. You have the second
Everybody
overall
likes it.
pick, the 12th overall pick.
Like it.
You're getting at least your second favorite QB.
Like
You
it.
have 2 extra first-rounders over the next 2 drafts. You got a handful of good players already. You've got 2 offensive tackles you can work with. Damian Pierce, Nico Collins. On defense, Jalen Petre. You're in a soft division right now. Did somebody say hyper juicy berserk? Hold on, can you? I'm gonna say that loud
Now
again.
there's no reverse
Clock's
gears.
ticking. Clock's ticking.
Did somebody say hyper juicy berserker in the AFC? I'm telling you, no one talks about the Texans. This team, I think, has
Nobody
a chance
talks
to
about
do.
the Texans?
They has a chance to do a Jaguars thing.
Wait, what
I
was
really
it
do.
again? Hyper jerky juicy?
Hyper juicy berserker, a total disaster.
Okay.
You know, Colleen and Dan jumped in there too and had their little fun. But when I said something, immediately your hand came out and almost poked me in the eye.
Almost a physical
it's
altercation.
It's like 7 times a minute, so it's just like a
I think
human
you gotta
reflex.
shush
Never stop
Gregg.
talking, Greg.
I
I was just trying to squeeze the line out, and it blew me up. So what do you want?
You get 4 games. Did you see the Chris Rock stand-up special? For
No.
a year, the entire world is, what's Chris Rock going to do? How will he address it? He does a live show. Oh, timeout.
Once again, Dan using all the timeouts.
All right, so 1 left.
Chris Rock gets slapped at the Oscars by Will Smith. Unbelievable. One of the craziest pop culture moments of our lifetime. A year passes. What will Chris Rock do? Okay, this is going to tie to what just happened here. Don't worry. How will he speak on it? What will happen? He's going to go on tour, and then he's going to put out a comedy special. And everyone will want to know how he reacts to what he has to say about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett and all that.
Sure, the whole crew.
He does a Netflix special, but not just any Netflix special. Greggy, you know people in the world of comedy. It's a live Netflix special. Unprecedented. A huge deal. Saturday night. He waits until the very end of the set to discuss the Will Smith situation. And when he finally gets to that, after an otherwise flawless show in terms of his delivery, he botches the bit.
Oh,
He says the wrong movie. He meant to say concussion, whatever that movie was, and instead said Emancipation, the newer movie Smith did, and blew the whole thing.
Oh, that's what happened.
What? Didn't he have like 10 minutes on that, though? And
He
that was just
stepped
one
on
joke.
the
That was
key
just one-
joke, and
oh.
it connected all the different parts of the running joke, and it was a devastating situation. And that's how I felt when you tried to say,
did somebody say hyper juicy berserker in the AFC?
Oh,
Question
there
mark.
it is.
Thank you.
that is.
That was a well-used timeout, in my opinion.
Tugboat says time in.
Okay.
Let's see it, Nick Caserio. Everyone's like, when they were like almost firing Nick Caserio, they were like, oh, how dare they like consider firing Nick Caserio before he could show what he could do? He's also the guy who hired David Culley and hired Lovie Smith, and they each lasted 1 year.
Yeah.
So let's see it.
Fair.
Well, to Mark's point, can they be that berserker? Well, they have 4 games against Tennessee and Indy, so that's a good start. The thing that made Jacksonville a compelling pick in that regard was generational quarterback getting a fresh start with a coach and Doug Peterson and some pieces in place, that they're smart or a very aggressive offseason of spending. Remember, not a lot of people thought it was smart what Jacksonville did with some of their spending. It all worked out. I don't know if they're in the same places, these two franchises, but I see your overall point that if you hit on the quarterback, they're in the right place to all of a sudden jump double their win total.
They're
say
set
this.
up for long-term success.
Right. If they mess all these things up I just mentioned,
Yeah.
that's an absolute organizational
Got to
apocalypse.
get the quarterback.
Right.
Like, not to oversimplify it, but like if you hit on the quarterback, yes, you can do that. If you don't,
Timeout.
last time out.
We're going to use
Wow.
2 timeouts in the Texans. 2 seconds left. The Texans
That's the
fans
respect they deserve.
say they don't get any respect. We're going to give it to
Okay.
them. And I'm just going to do it
Hey.
to point out a name we haven't mentioned on this show. One of the most important men in this organization is Bobby Slowick. That's their offensive coordinator. He is taking over an offense with a number 1 overall quarterback, or number 2 overall,
yeah.
depending on where they end up drafting. I kind of think they'll end up having the first overall pick because it's just going to make sure they get their guy, that they're the most logical team. Former PFF employee, Bobby Slowick. How about that?
Wow.
Very nice.
Also, his dad was a longtime NFL coach. I forget his dad's name, but he was around in the same. It's all very incestuous.
Tito
in the same sort of
Slowick.
Shanahan tree, and he also comes from San Francisco. But a young coach who's going to have some pieces. They'll probably trade Brandon Cooks.
They have to figure that out.
So I find that interesting.
And whatever
but
they're going to do with Tunsil, too.
I think they keep Tunsil. I mean,
Yeah.
they got a great left tackle. You got a couple pieces. I don't think they're. Damian Pierce won the scepter at the NFL
Very
honors.
nice.
That was a big spot.
Very nice.
I'm kind of with you, Mark. I think they need to push. They need to make progress this year, or that
Well, they got
owner
to
is
do
going to
it,
be a
but
little
the
antsy
table
about
is there. The
the
table
What's he
is
going to
set.
do, though? Is he going to fire the head
No,
coach
he's not
again?
going to fire the head
No.
coach, but antsy about the vision. Maybe the GM and all that. They're not. They got a chance. They got resources.
Okay.
Are we going
Bobby
to
Slowick.
time back in? Or?
it's 2
PFF
seconds left.
employee. Also, Zach Robinson, former PFF employee, now in a big
Greg just
spot.
wants to filibuster for the rest.
Timeout.
I just want to point out
No.
that is the end of the third quarter of this show. We've done 3 of the 4 divisions, and you just used our final timeout with the entire fourth quarter still to play.
Yeah.
We're down 2 scores.
That was my. I've just learned it from my co-host. That's what you used to do.
don't see
Take
any.
a lot of timeouts early.
I don't see it. You talking about Mark?
Not me. I didn't take a timeout.
I didn't say anything. I
we
just
didn't
said
have a
you
chance,
need that
Mark,
timeout.
to
No.
take a timeout.
You need those timeouts in the fourth.
I had to get in that Slowick pop.
Let's
Thank God.
let's take a break and then finish things out. All right, fourth quarter. No timeouts. The AFC West. Colleen Wolfe, are you prepared to talk
I
the
am
Denver
ready.
Broncos? Honestly?
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens once I start talking, but
All right.
I mean, it's
Honestly.
You have started talking, but
Start
well,
the
the
clock.
timer hasn't
right.
started.
I don't know what's going on there.
All right, let's go.
Honestly.
The Broncos, what a disaster last year. So, a couple questions here. Can Sean Payton vibe with Russell Wilson like he did with Drew Brees? Will that be enough to fix how broken Russell Wilson looked at times last season? There's talent on this roster, and if Russell Wilson can tap into whatever he was able to have in Seattle with those deep throws and just his awareness on the field during the game, which he just didn't seem to have so many times last season, then they'll be in pretty good shape. The offense was an absolute disaster last year. It was a career bad year for Russell Wilson, a ton of injuries to skill positions. Tim Patrick didn't even make it to the kickoff of the regular season because he was hurt in training camp. Offensive tackle, they used 4 different ones in 2022, 3 of which are free agents. The defense, always solid. That's usually not a problem. An excellent secondary. Patrick Surtain made the leap. That was great to see. But they could use outside linebacker help, a defensive end as well. But it'll be a quiet night for Denver on Thursday of the draft because they have 0 picks in the top 65.
Whoa.
I mean, I'm not comparing Hackett to Urban Meyer at all, but it's got that chance to be that kind of leap for the team in general, because the one thing that kind of bugged me about Hackett, it seemed like and there was, whispers about this, that he just didn't really have the makeup to stand up to Russell Wilson or stand up to some of the chaos. That there were even sideline shots where you could see the defense confronting the offense and Hackett sort of fades into the background, and it was just like, come on, bro. But I also think that Sean Payton never would have taken this job, or I would assume this, without power, and he's going to have more power than Russell Wilson, and that's going to be tough for Russell Wilson to get out of Russell Wilson after this season if it doesn't go well. I don't think it's like a Russell Wilson or bust situation for Sean Payton. Otherwise, it's a terrible job to take.
Yeah, like what also didn't help Hackett was Russell Wilson couldn't play.
No doubt.
And like with Trevor Lawrence was a rookie that was trapped in a bad situation. If Peyton, if Russell Wilson still is terrible in September, like how long is the rope even with Russell Wilson? Or is Sean Payton going to have somebody ready to roll that he likes, whether it's
I feel power.
a veteran that's out there on the market or somebody they draft and try to develop? I don't know.
They should have – that'll be telling. Have a good backup. It doesn't need to be a veteran backup. Maybe it is a rookie.
But, like, is he just like –
But they don't have picks.
How does he just break? Like, I don't
He was
quite
just okay
understand.
before, and if he gets back to being okay, it's still a bit of a disaster. We were
Yeah.
just saying if Deshaun Watson's average, then that's a disaster, and that's like what you're hoping for out of Wilson. Keep an eye on Cortland Sutton maybe as a potential trade chip to get one of those picks. They got enough receivers.
All right, let's ride.
The defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. So they just won that Super Bowl as what I thought they were a good team that were lifted to greatness by a magnificent quarterback. So there are areas of improvement here. The offensive line, very interesting. They decided not to tag their left tackle, Orlando Brown, so that opens up a potential massive need on Mahomes' blind side. There are some tackle options in the free agent market. I'd be interested to see if that's the route they go on this. But the defense is also an area of need because, Connie, I remain fairly confident that if they don't throw that flag, I think Hurts is like the biggest sports star in America right now because I think he would have taken him down the field and won that damn game. So their defense was ripe to be picked off there. They weren't. They lucked out. Frank Clark, they let go this week, so he didn't become what they ever wanted him to be. Chris Jones is such a monster. Just give him some help. So
Right.
I think the idea of offensive line, pass rusher seem like two obvious places for the defending champs to focus on over the next month or so.
They don't have a tackle right now. I mean, their left tackle is about to hit free agency, Orlando Brown, and their right tackle, Andrew Wiley, is about to hit free agency.
It's true.
That's a bit of an
Yikes.
issue. I found this tweet from our guy James Palmer, who unfortunately doesn't have the Twitter account at James Palmer. That is a man who's an entrepreneur, a technologist, and an explorer.
Well, that man sounds like he does a lot.
They
Better.
still have. Wait, there are
He's gotta
still
be on the
explorers.
He hasn't tweeted since 2015, so he's busy.
Wait, there's still explorers.
He's an explorer.
Oh, James Palmer could get that then.
Yeah,
That's
he should
considered
go
like
take
an inactive
it. But
account.
at James Palmer TV, you'll find a very interesting tweet about the Chiefs wide receiver group, who they say will all be back. The plan is to bring back Juju, so a little news there. So we'll see, but the plan is to bring him back, and that they expect Kadarius Toney to be their wide receiver 1 next year.
Wow.
And then McCall Hardman is.
Well, I'm not really counting McCall.
Okay.
Yeah. You got Sky Moore, you got MVS, you
Yeah.
got Kelsey.
That's a big
McCall Hardman's a
projection
free agent, I believe.
For
Right.
Toney, I mean, I think part of it with Toney, it's like wide receiver 1 for how many weeks out of the season. But I love like the idea of him on the team with a much larger role.
It
lot of
seems like
I just trust the Chiefs. Like that, they had issues coming out of the Super Bowl loss to the Bucs, and they patched up their line that offseason in a great way. Just kind of just trust them to do it. And like Brett Veach doesn't get enough credit.
Normally you worry about handling success, and they've been to 5 straight AFC championships, so I
Right.
think they've proven it.
I'm seeing a little exchange here between James Palmer and then Peter King quote retweeting
Okay.
about some reporting from Palmer regarding Kirk Cousins back in the day with the Broncos. King wrote, "Sorry, I didn't know this when I wrote on Monday, at James Palmer. You deserve the kudos for reporting Broncos never made an offer to Cousins. He sent it to the Explorer." Magellan
I love it.
on the high seas.
love
Never
it.
saw it
From
on the high
Peter King.
seas.
I love it.
Okay, but like seriously, how do we get that guy on the pod? The Explorer.
Gotta make sure he makes it. Could get typhoid out there. The Chargers, Mark.
Yeah, I've been looking at what's going on with these guys. I feel like if last year's
Are you not
Chargers team,
prepared?
no, I did honestly. I did honestly. Like if they frustrated you last year, I think I have some bad news for you because it was like last offseason that they went all in to win now. with Justin Herbert on a rookie deal. It didn't work out. They're $21 million in the red. They can restructure a number of guys, like every one of these teams, but they're also going to have to sign Justin Herbert to a massive contract at some point.
Football is completely different than basketball.
They just can't really add the talent or depth. They're kind of stuck doing not a lot in this free agency period. And, I mean, they have to absolutely nail their draft. And I was a huge Brandon Staley guy, but I feel like my two biggest memories of him are the way they lost the Raiders game 2 seasons ago and the absolute implosion against the Jaguars, which his whole branding was all that old Chargers stuff doesn't exist anymore. All that's just up in the head. We're going to be completely different. But that was like the most Chargers-esque loss ever. And I don't know if Justin Herbert, I do like Kellen Moore in there over Joe Lombardi. But, I mean, all things considered, I was looking around. I cannot find a bigger hot seat coach in the AFC than Brandon Staley. Unless the Jets thing went totally south with Aaron Rodgers, they didn't get him, and they had to go in with nobody at quarterback.
I want them to focus on offense. They've spent so much time, resources, money, draft picks on Brandon Staley's defense. This happens when you get a defensive coach because he wants his side of the ball to look good. And they've never been particularly good. They've had moments here or there. Let's get as many weapons around Justin Herbert as possible, but I don't really trust them to do it. They're in cap space difficulty, and some teams you think would restructure and be able to spend more, but they're one of those teams that I don't think really spends as much as other teams in terms of cash. And when that NFLPA report card came out the other week, Chargers 30th in the league, F- training room, C- training staff, D- locker room, F food service.
Are you serious?
That report card was terrible news for almost everyone.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're getting their food service from the same people that have SoFi Stadium. The best maybe stadium in the entire country and the worst stadium food in the country. Let's fix it, Kroenke.
Or are they talking about the Costa Mesa? Isn't that where they?
Well, yeah, this is different than their training facility. It has nothing to do with SoFi. But my point about the SoFi food stands. It's bad food.
That's my favorite take from this entire show, by the way.
The food needs to get better at SoFi. Well, they're a tenant, and that's going to limit their abilities to do anything.
Chargers have nothing to do with it, really.
They need a wide receiver. I know that Keenan Allen was being thrown around as like a cap casualty, but they said that that's not going to happen. He's not going anywhere.
Get another one.
They have to draft a wide receiver.
Next Gen said they had the slowest wideouts in the league last year.
Draft one of those fancy tight ends.
You did a hand thing. One of those.
You said cap space difficulty. Is that because the concept of heaven and hell, you wanted to stay away from cap space hell? Is that?
Are you editing him?
No, I'm just asking a question. We're not talking about the team anymore. This is just about Gregg.
Save it for the Theology Podcast, Tugboat.
Whoa.
That's awesome.
Is Zumwalt here?
On point.
It's disturbingly on point. All right, that's it, right?
No. This is the Raiders from Las Vegas.
Raiders. Gregg Rosenthal.
Okay, this team needs defensive backs. It needs linebackers. It needs pass rushers. It needs run stoppers. That's the entire defense. They need a defense. They have nothing on defense.
It's a quarterback too.
They're in a tough situation. I think McDaniels took a difficult. They need offensive linemen.
Well,
he took a difficult. Terrible. He took a difficult job. Not a lot of people on their roster that I think long term are going to be there, and like reasonably high expectations because they were coming off a playoff appearance. They're in a tough spot. I think they're in the toughest spot in this division.
You trust Josh McDaniels to be the guy to save this?
It doesn't look good. Like I'm looking at this team right now, and
they have a lot of cap space. That is one thing.
That is a plus.
They are a team that you hear struggles with escrow. Gotta keep that in mind.
They're one of those teams, that couldn't get Lamar because they couldn't
escrow
afford
hell or escrow difficulty.
I thought Darren Waller might be a guy that they look to trade, but there has been reporting that's not the case. I don't know if I totally buy that.
Is Devontae Adams definitely?
Yeah, I think he's definitely staying.
I'm sure he's thrilled about this.
Who are they connected to right now?
Jimmy Garoppolo has been a name that's obviously knows.
Texans are also connected.
Jimmy G and a rookie.
Yeah, they could draft seven.
I think they could. They're a candidate to move up from 7 or draft someone like Will Levis.
And they did. He did very good work. It looks even better now with Mac Jones in 2021. So give if we want to see if McDaniels can play the guitar, give him some runway with a young quarterback and see if they can build something here.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with them like moving on from Carr. I do wonder if there was another world where they thought we'll have Tom Brady by this stage in the offseason versus nothing, but you'd have a good draft position. You didn't know that when you had Derek Carr essentially leave the building, though.
They just have so many needs. So Dave Ziegler and McDaniels just have – it's tough to team build in one offseason. That many spots on defense. You're counting on your coaches to do it a little bit. I do think Jimmy G would be better than Derek Carr with Josh McDaniels. I've always thought he would have been better if he stayed in that system.
I'm with you.
How about Jimmy G? Yeah, pair him with a first-round rookie. Jimmy G's not going to play 17 games anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Aaron Rodgers is completely not.
It's just they keep there's. It sounds like it's a no-go. I think from a money
Escrow.
angle too. Yeah,
I could see them going for a Javon Hargrave in free agency, for a James Bradbury. How about all the Eagles?
I hate that.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They literally need everything on their defense.
Other than that, things are looking really good in the desert
It's
for
great.
23.
I can't wait.
Sorry. We love you, Raiders.
Dark
fans.
Sun.
Jackpot, baby!
That is around the AFC in 48-ish minutes. Good work.
Loved it.
Colleen, you've said it all.
It's been so much fun being in studio today, and I'm just happy that I was able to carve a little time out to see my friends.
Very nice.
That's nice.
When does the summer of Connie begin? We need to know
It's
that
already begun.
for scheduling.
It's
March.
now, pretty much.
You went
Right
to
now.
Hotlanta. Up next, where? The Caribbean, perhaps?
Maybe. I don't know.
Africa?
You know, I gotta figure it all out. Trying to go on some type of retreat. We'll see.
Greece.
Greece is always something
A
that
darkness
I'm gonna
retreat.
Yeah,
I
what
mean,
kind of
it
darkness
is only
retreat?
March. That's
But-
really not that close to the summer. It also hasn't topped like 55 degrees and raining here.
But this is
in
when you plan for your summer.
weeks. Okay.
So
I feel like you and Gonzo, maybe an ayahuasca retreat could be.
That's
on your
absolutely
radar.
not. Like, no way.
No.
You could not even pay me money to. No. That
right.
It
Cross it
sounds
off the list.
terrible.
Why?
You
Just
get
because of the
sick.
the company?
No, like
I think there's a little dignity loss with certain aspects of the retreat, as I've heard as well.
with ayahuasca, like
Yeah.
you are in a bathroom and it's like food poisoning, essentially.
the body rejects
That's
it largely
not
until it.
my
kicks
idea
in.
of fun.
Right.
Hmm.
I understand that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry for bringing it
I'm
up.
bored.
All right, we will be back. We gave you guys a lot of content the last couple
So
days, but
much.
there's more coming because around the NFC in 48 minutes with the great Claybon coming up later this week. So stay tuned for that. And that's that.
Good
Was this the
times.
closest it ever came to Mark hitting Gregg?
I was not attempting to hit anyone.
But
Was it a swing?
I like how feisty
the arm
it
was
over
close.
I was not. I know. Just it was a.
there. Keep it spicy.
Heed the call.